everyone. My name is Benjamin. Welcome to the Learn at Home Examination Readiness Series. Today we will be solving past questions in English language with focus on senior school certificate examination. At the last class, we were able to solve questions in section 2 of the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2012 English Language Objective Test questions. In this edition, we are focusing on the same past questions from West African Senior School Certificate Examinations of June 2012 English Language, and our focus will be on section 3. To really follow this class, please use your past question compilation guide. This will enable you to follow me as I discuss the principles and answers to each question. I hope you are all prepared for today's class. I believe you are all fully prepared. I am excited too, as I am prepared for the class. Happy to see you back to Learn at Home. At the end of this class, you will be able to solve questions in section 3 of West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2012 English Language. So let's get started. In this section of the exam, we are concerned with certain grammatical principles that will enable us to understand and pick the correct answers to the questions. The section is dealing on sentence interpretation. And then, to be able to interpret sentences correctly, we need a full grasp of semantics, as earlier discussed in our previous lesson. Who can remind us about the meaning of semantics? How did we define semantics in our last class? Yes? Yes, the semantics is simply the meaning of a word, phrase, or text. So when we are dealing with semantics, we are talking about the meaning, the intended meaning to be conveyed in a sentence or a phrase or a word or an expression. So that is semantics. Then in this section, which is dealing on interpretation of sentences, one particular principle we need to understand is what is called idiom or idiomatic expressions. Because most of the sentences you are given to interpret are idiomatic in nature. Now, what is an idiom or an idiomatic expression? An idiom, which is also known as idiomatic expression, is an expression, word, or phrase that has a figurative meaning conventionally understood by native speakers. I mean, idioms are formed by convention. You know, there is a particular characteristic of language that we call conventionality, which means that, you know, certain words or expressions that are used in a language are just used by convention. You know, it's not something that you can easily try to decode logically. But if a speech community have agreed to use a particular expression to stand for something or for anything, that is how it is. So an idiom is understood by native speakers conventionally. That means there's a kind of, it's just known to everybody that this is what this expression means. And sometimes you can't explain an idiom by just examining the words that make it up. Now, for example, if you say that something is fishy, it doesn't mean there is any fish. Or if you say that, you know, someone has let the cat out of the bag, there is no physical cat in such, that is, there is no cat in that equation. It's just an expression that is understood conventionally by native speakers, and it has a definite meaning that is conveyed. So that's part of what we shall be looking at. And there are certain things that enable us to figure out the meaning of an idiom, even though an idiom is a group of words that is different from the meanings of the individual words that make it up. We are going to look at some of the things that will help us to figure out the meaning as we try to solve the questions one by one. Let's begin with question, well, let's take the instruction first. Section 3, the instruction is as follows. After each of the following sentences, a list of possible interpretations is given. Choose the interpretation that you consider most appropriate for each sentence. So you can see that we shall be discussing sentence interpretations. Question 21. The boy went scot-free even though he insulted his teacher. So the idiomatic expression here is went scot-free. What does it really mean? You know, this means that the boy was A, not punished, B, free to move about, C, expelled from school, D, cautioned seriously. Now, there is another method that will help us also to pick the right option, even when we don't know the actual meaning of the expression. We can use the elimination method. Now, let's look at option A, not punished, which of course is the obvious answer. Let's look at the other options. Free to move about. You know, that of course is not, the freedom of movement is not the only freedom implied here. You know, the boy went scot-free. We are not told that it has to do with movement. So always avoid such answers that introduce an extra idea into the situation. C, expelled from school. Of course, you can see that there's nowhere that is mentioned here. This is a specific kind of action that is not mentioned here at all. Then D, cautioned seriously. Of course, that also is not mentioned. And looking at the word, the phrase is scot-free. The word free should give us the idea that freedom is implied here. So even if we don't understand any other thing, the word free will give us the idea that this person is going free. So that shows us that A is the actual interpretation. This means that the boy was not punished. You know, the boy went scot-free, even though he insulted his teacher. There's another context clue here, even though is a kind of contrast. It introduces contrast to an idea. Now we know the boy who insulted his teacher is supposed to be punished. But we are told even though he insulted his teacher, the boy went scot-free. So all these are clues that will help us to actually identify the interpretation. So the correct interpretation is that the boy was not punished. That's the meaning of going scot-free. Question 22. The driver escaped death by a hair's breadth. This means that the driver escaped death, A, fast, B, luckily, C, surprisingly, D, narrowly. Now, there is something that can help us to interpret the meaning of this idiomatic expression. To escape death, the idiom here is by a hair's breadth. Now, sometimes you have to just use imagery. All right, you can use imagery, the kind of mental picture that this expression will convey in you, the picture it conveys in your mind will help you to figure out the meaning. Now, you know a hair now, a hair, that's the hair, those things on your head, a single hair, the breadth, that is width, is referring to a space. A hair's breadth is a small space, you know, very small. The breadth of a hair, you know, a single hair from your head, if you measure it, you can look at the space. So what does it tell you? And that was how the driver escaped death. That gives us the idea that option D is the correct answer. This means that the driver escaped death narrowly by a hair's breadth. Just think about it, a hair's breadth. Breadth means width. When you talk of length and width, you measure the breadth or the width of a hair. So small, and that was how the driver escaped. Okay, so let's move on to question 23. I am giving a free hand to run this business. This means that I am allowed to make my own decisions. B, make my own appointments. C, assist the workers willingly. D, alone can choose my executives. Now, what does it mean to be given a free hand? Again, you can see that the combination of words here can give us some context clue, if you like. You know, a free hand means you can do what you like. Your hands are not tied. So that is the kind of image this should create in your mind. When you are given a free hand, it means you have freedom to do whatever you like. And, you know, with that meaning in mind, you can look through the options. So first, look at the idiomatic expression and then think about the kind of image it creates in your mind. And that will help you to try to decipher the meaning, the interpretation, all right? So if you use this method, it will help you a lot, especially when you combine it with the elimination method. There are some options from A to D that don't make sense at all. So you are going to eliminate those methods and then you use the image created in your mind to try to figure out the exact interpretation. Now let's do this. This means that A, I am allowed to make my own decisions. That's the exact interpretation. You can make your own decisions. You can decide to do what you like. That's what it means to be given a free hand. And that tallies with the image we already have in our mind concerning having a free hand. Your hands are not tied. You have freedom to do what you like. All right? Then option B, make my own appointment. There's nothing specifically mentioned about appointment. C, assist workers willingly. This is is an irrelevant idea introduced. D, alone can choose my executives. Again, is an irrelevant idea introduced. So we go with option A, which is I am allowed to make my own decisions. Now, let's take a break now. I will be back to conclude the solutions. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Learn at Home. We are discussing answers to the past questions of West African Senior School Certificate Examination, June 2012, English language to be precise. Before we went on break, we stopped at question 23, where we interpreted the idiomatic expression that had to do with being given a free hand. Now, we will continue from question 24. Remember the various grammatical principles we introduced at the beginning of this lesson. First, we talked about sentence interpretation, which is what this section is all about. Then we talked about semantics, which of course is concerned with the meaning of words, phrases, or expressions. Then we talked about idiom or idiomatic expression, which is an expression or word or phrase that has a figurative meaning conventionally understood by native speakers. Normally, an idiom has a meaning that is different from the literal meaning of the words that make up the group. But we have been able to look at ways of interpreting idiomatic expression. And one of them is to consider the kind of image that the expression creates in our mind. Now let's continue with this and also combining that method with the elimination method. Question 24. In every good transaction, there should be some give and take. This means that A, transactions are about giving. B, transactions give and take. C, any gift should be accepted willingly. D, people should be willing to make compromises. Of course, you can see that D is the obvious interpretation. You know, give and take. So again, you can see that this creates a kind of image in your mind. Give and take, which means when it involves two people, it means there is a kind of compromise, all right? So that exactly is one way of trying to interpret the idiomatic expression. Question 25. That account of the incident is true to a degree. This means that the account is A, totally wrong, B, not clear, C, completely true, D, partly true. Now, if something is true to a degree, now just consider it. To a degree gives us a context clue as to the meaning. If something is true to a degree, it's not completely true. It's only to a degree. So the actual interpretation is B, it is partly true. Question 26. Moses won the contest hands down. This means that Moses won A, surprisingly, B, very easily, C, narrowly, D, with difficulty. Now let's use the method of the imagery method, if I may say so. Now, what kind of image does it create in your mind? You are in a contest and you win hands down, which means you are not even making so much efforts, you know. When you use all your hands and you have to mobilize them, it means that it is a difficult competition, a stiff competition. But when you win hands down, what does that tell you? You see, so that gives us a kind of image And that shows us that B is correct. You know, Moses won the contest hands down. This means that Moses won very easily, hands down. All right. Surprisingly, is really not the option because there's no element of surprise here. C, narrowly, no. D, with difficulty, is in fact the opposite. Because if we win with difficulty, we have to mobilize our two hands and we have to put in all our energy. But when you win hands down, it shows how easily you have won. Question 27. They vowed to win the race by hook or by crook. This means that they vowed to win by they win by A, peaceful negotiations, B, any possible means, C, bribing the other competitors, D, being honest. Now, by hook or by crook means you want to win by any possible means. That's just what it means. Hook or crook means whether good or bad, by any means. Whether by honest or dishonest means by hook or by crook. Question 28. William spent the first 3 months learning the ropes. This means that he, A, pulled all the ropes that should be pulled. You can see these are types of options you can easily eliminate. B, learned what the job demanded. This is the appropriate interpretation because when you learn the ropes, you are learning how to do a particular task. You know, you learn the rope. That even gives you the image of, you know, a task involves the use of ropes and you are trying to learn how to use the ropes, how to tie it, what to do. That is the obvious meaning it conveys. So there is one simple question you need to ask yourself when you are confronted with an idiomatic expression. What picture does it create in my mind? What image does it really paint in my mind? What picture does it paint? What image does it create? And that helps you to decode the idiom. Now, question 29. Our teacher advised us not to go with the crowd. This means that he advised us to A, stay too much in the crowd. This you can eliminate easily. B, travel with the crowd. There's no mention of travel here. Go doesn't mean travel in this context. C, have many friends. Of course, obviously, that's even the, that has no bearing at all. Then D, be unduly influenced by others. Of course, that's the appropriate interpretation. Question 30. Although the men were foreigners, they were given preferential treatment. This means that the men were treated A, better than others, B, with caution, C, with respect, D, very quickly. The obvious interpretation is A, they were treated better than others. Preference means something you show that you like, you know, more than the other one. So that's just the obvious meaning. Preferential treatment has to do with treating someone better than the others. So this is where we draw the curtain in today's lesson. I believe you must have learned the grammatical principles that will enable you to answer questions correctly whenever you come across questions like this. Continue to study your books and practice your past questions. We shall be back next class to study more of how to solve questions in the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, English language to be specific. Sorry for that. Thank you for studying with us today at Learn at Home. See you in the next class and bye for now. Many thanks for watching today's video.
a big thank you to all of you out there for being part of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, kindly subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now as a way of giving us support. For notification about new videos, click on the bell icon. You will find the bell icon. Click on it so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be instantly notified. If you have actually enjoyed the video, like and share the video with your friends and relatives. This is very important. If you have any comments, leave your comments below. Any questions, any suggestions, we would gladly receive them and respond promptly and positively to them. See you in the next video. I look forward to always seeing you in the new video. Thank you.